Hello, we're back. We're back from a brief break. Don't mind the chaos around me. You actually can't see it, so I protect you from the chaos. But here we are together, Ian and I. So I'm Katherine Hood. If we haven't met, I'm a happiness coach. I work with individuals in small groups across the US and Canada, helping them define what happiness is, which is very different from pleasure. But anyways, I help you define what happiness is and help you achieve it. Walking alongside you is a thinking partner, or in other words, a life coach. So Ian, feel free to introduce yourself.
Ian Gregoire, peak performance coach, life and business strategist. I help professionals streamline life and business so y'all can do more of what you love. I love working with leaders, founders, business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, people who have a lot of responsibility on their plate and want help not only in their personal life, but also in their professional life. And I run small groups. I work with medium groups in person and also work with people one-on-one. I'm just so stoked to be back here with Katherine. And today we're going to talk about experiences that have shaped us. And we are all shaped by our experiences. It's not escapable. Every single one of us are influenced by what we have confronted in our lives. And I know my path has been, I think, fairly original, but I think everyone feels like that, to be honest. Like, we all feel like our path is original, and we all have interesting things that have happened in our lives that have shaped us. And so I think a great place to start is childhood, right? Like, let's go back to childhood experiences. Whoa. Yeah, for me, a big experience that shaped me in my childhood was I grew up in a place and went to a school that had a lot of Spanish speakers. And I rode a bus that was predominantly Spanish speakers. And that experience, growing up around people that spoke a language that was very different than my own, and I felt kind of like, I guess, drawn to what was going on in Hispanic culture and language. And that's what I ended up studying in college. And so, like, growing up around other Spanish speakers and people that had like a different culture, different family values, different lifestyle than I did, drew me to study that academically. So that is like one gigantic experience that really influenced me personally and ended up influencing me professionally, in that after college I worked in a lot of jobs and got jobs because I spoke Spanish and I understood Spanish people of the culture of Spanish speaking cultures. So that's one thing from my childhood.
Yeah, I want to also invite those watching this, whether it be recorded or live, to comment on what shaped you as who you are today from your childhood. I think what I love about what you shared is multiple cultures. I think that that's such a gift to have a variety of cultures, being exposed to a variety of cultures. I think that really allows us to deeply understand, or pave our own way, really. Maybe understand that we all have different beliefs, right? Whether that be political, religious, or styles of eating, or, and I'm not real familiar with the Spanish culture, but my assumption is that they're very grounded, very family oriented in general. So I think I'm just a wild guess. And so I'm curious to see what your takeaway is, because you're the one that was immersed in that. So culturally wise, I grew up mostly, a big chunk of my childhood, well, half of it was in Alaska. So it was very unique, isolated, I would say. But there's so many misconceptions, now living in Washington and telling people that I lived in Alaska for so long that there's a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions and viewpoints that are, I mean, some of them are probably factual, but some of them aren't, but it's an extreme, growing up in an extreme where you're really concentrating and thinking and planning and preparing ahead of time, right, for the next season, because it's an area that's very, and part of the reason why I moved away from it is just so extreme, right? There's such deep cold, deep darkness, there's flooding, there's earthquakes, there's constant danger. So it is fascinating to kind of reflect back on that and go, how did that shape me as a person? So,
Yeah, that is really interesting. As someone who's never been to Alaska, I'm curious how it does shape a person, and I can only imagine that you're quite the planner.
well,
Um,
and that does come up with coaching too. I have clients that are really, brand new clients that don't plan ahead, right? They're just living by the seat of their pants, or, what needs addressed right now, what's on fire. And so it is interesting to see that, and is that part of how they're raised? Was that part of their culture? Is that part of, their environment? Was that part of what created who they are, these habits that, but for me, it's so much about that lifestyle, that big chunk of my life that was, really about being prepared, planning ahead, thinking ahead, and being ready.
yeah. So to kind of answer your questions about people of Spanish speaking cultures being more grounded and more family oriented, I'd say yes, definitely in general, as compared to modern, like North American culture as it is today, yes. More grounded, more family oriented. I think if you go back a few generations, maybe pre World War II or something like that in North America, I imagine that there was a more grounded, more family oriented family values, and that's I think that's kind of getting into another discussion. But going back to how climate influences people, I think that's where we can really hone in on something interesting there, as it relates to planning, because when you get into the tropics, in general, right, there's not as much need for planning, like going back culturally. Whereas if you're living in northern or extremely southern climates where there's a lot more cold, the human population has developed a lot more in the northern hemisphere than the southern hemisphere. But when you're in those cultures that require a lot more planning, you become better at planning because you have to in order to survive. Conversely, when you're in more tropical regions, there is generally less planning because you don't need as much planning to survive. And so I think it's fascinating because I work with a lot of people on planning as well, from all different backgrounds, right? Mostly what you would consider, white or Caucasian, and how important planning is, how important prioritization is, how important that is for productivity and as well as happiness, like what we ultimately put on as our crown. I think it's really bold and awesome that you state that you're a happiness coach, because that is kind of like the crowning jewel of the human experience once you do have health and your business and your relationships in order. And so I really identify with what you do, and I appreciate that I'm a happiness coach, and also throw into the bag a life coach, because you need to work on all those aspects of your life and business and relationships in order to have happiness. And a lot of it boils down to a lot of like nitty gritty details and planning in order to have joy, in order to have some spontaneity. And so it's kind of like this, in order to engineer joy or happiness, however you define it, requires a lot of planning. It's like, in order to be spontaneous, it requires a lot of work. So it's just, to me, at this point, it just comes back into like the topsy-turvy nature of our existence, in that we want joy, we want spontaneity, we want excitement, we want happiness. In order to get that, we have to do a lot of things that are potentially mundane or hard.
You bring up such a great point too, because, just based on that initial question, what shaped us as a person is, I really thought, and I don't know where it came from other than I point my finger and blame society and culture, but I really thought happiness was external until I realized everything I set myself out to achieve and acquire and get and solve or whatever, it was fleeting, right? There was that moment of pleasure, that moment of joy, and then now what? What's the next thing? It was just, I really cultivated and realized that it's the journey, right? It's developing and creating those systems and processes in place that provide that sense of, a happy life, really creating that balance, kind of like what you talked about with the life coaching piece, is having the business, if that's what you want, or the career, or the job, or the retirement, or whatever, in your relationships and your health, really balancing out all the aspects is really, it's this happiness really is a state of mind. It's not in any of these external things, but I used to think that. I really did. I used to think that, and I know that's very cliche and people say it all the time, well, happiness is an inside job, but you can say that, but logically, you can say that and say, what that means, but until you actually feel it and experience it and understand it, and also on a daily basis, nurture it, you don't understand it. You just don't. And because culturally and society want you to believe that happiness is in getting a new car. Happiness is buying that house. Happiness is in having a job that offers fulfillment, purpose, meaning. They have all these definitions that, I have to get married, or I have to go to college, or I have to check that box, or I have to look a certain way, or I have to this. And that's not happiness. It's not happiness at all. So whatever it was, for me, it really was accomplishing and achieving all the things I set out to do, because I can't think of very many things that I set out to do and didn't get it in some fashion or form, or win or succeed. And I would get it. And I was like, is this what it feels like? Like, I really thought that a sense of happiness, a sense of feeling would be injected into me. And it would be this finish line, this, the end of the rainbow or whatever, but it's not. It really is about cultivating a daily routine and processes and a way of living and enjoying the journey moment to moment in a way that you create that sense of happiness internally, and being grateful and appreciative and being grounded. I didn't grow up that way. I know you brought that up in the childhood piece, but I didn't grow up that way. And not really something that I work on with clients, because that's very past tense. You're not your childhood. You're not what happened to you even 5 minutes ago. That's not who you are. Your identity is much greater than that. You are who you are right now, and you are who you are at your core, your values, your morals, your principles. It's really understanding and grounding yourself into who you are and how you want to feel in each and every single moment, and taking action from that core, like from your bone marrow, right? And making decisions from that place, from that feeling.
I love it. I love it, Katherine. I love your philosophy. I love all your words. I deeply resonate with everything you said. And I fully agree. It's about cultivating daily, nurturing daily. And, an idea that I wrote down as I was thinking about everything you were saying about values, how tied values and action are. It's like people, so often I see, say one thing or kind of think one thing but do something else, and like I'm guilty of it too. Like, I'm not saying that I'm above that, right? I'm just saying, if a person can strive, and really a family, a community, a nation, a world can strive to live more in alignment with their values through their actions, that we'll all have a better world. And what does that boil down to? To me, it boils down to choices. And I've recently discovered that my mission, or at least a gigantic part of my mission, is to help people make better choices. Imagine if I made the very best choices possible in my day, along with, my family, my community, my city, my state, my nation. Imagine if we all made the best choices possible. And I think most of us are, but Lord knows I've made some poor choices in my life. And I recently had an experience where I woke up a couple days ago, like, not feeling great. Like, to be honest with you, like, not everyone feels great. Things happen in life, right? I was kind of like, ho hum, didn't feel great. I was like, but I was going through my checklist, going through my routines, and I was like, I'm gonna take a walk. And I had seen like an ambulance go by, or like fire truck or something. I was like, oh, I bet an elderly person probably had a heart attack down the road or something, and they responded. And I'm walking along, and I see like a couple cop cars and the lights, and I get a little closer. I see the yellow tape. I get closer, and I see a body with a white sheet covered. And I live in the mountains, like I'm out in the boondocks. And I'm like, okay. And yeah, it turns out that there was a homicide, and someone lost their life, 25-year-old person. And that's basically all we know at this point. And someone stopped me. They were driving along, like, oh, I saw the body. Like, I thought it might have been you. I'm so glad it's not. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad it's not me either. Like, and so, that experience, I think we've all had some kind of brush with that along in our adult lives. And like, it can really bring some perspective to be like, okay, like, probably whatever that person was involved with was probably not good choices, right? And who knows? Like, I'm not judging anything, but I am assuming, but I think it's a pretty good assumption that there were some poor choices being made along the way. I've made poor choices too. So it's like, it gets back to the choice piece, in that I honestly believe, and I resonate with what you're saying, as far as like, wow, like, I've achieved anything that I set out to achieve, I've basically achieved. And it was a lot less awesome than, many of those things were a lot less awesome than I thought they were going to be. But how awesome is it to like make pretty darn good, cultivating, grounded choices day by day, and wake up and feel pretty darn good most days, and be able to help other people make great choices, so that they in turn can be leaders in their families, in their businesses, in their relationships, in their own lives, to feel more joy.
Yeah, you're right. I think I heard, or I think it was a couple days ago, 150,000 people die a day. And the spin on it was, if you think of it in that way, it's tapping into gratitude and appreciation for being here right now. And you're not one of those, but I do believe that we are an accumulation of all of our choices up until this point, right? Whether that be what you eat, what you drink, how you behave, your thoughts, your environment, what you subject your brain to on a daily basis. You make a lot more choices than you realize on a daily basis, and the people that you're around have a tremendous impact on you. So I think it's really being in alignment with your values, and if you don't know what those are, I think that that's just so very important, because I have clients that come to me and want to lose weight, for instance, But the thing is one of their deep values is really spending time with their family and friends around alcohol and really rich foods. So what I find is that I've had clients in the past that yo-yo, right? They come and they work with me for a period of time and then they leave and they come back and they leave and they come back. And what I've witnessed is with those individuals and they want to resist their value. They want to like blindside that and say, no, I can do it. I can eat, a salad or whatever while my family has lasagna. Well, that's really not in alignment with your values unless we work on some portion management or something, and coping mechanisms, and oftentimes that's a lot of what it is. And we kind of talked about it, we've kind of danced around it in this whole conversation is but we're all seeking a good feeling. And when you understand where your feelings come from and you understand habit formation and you understand how your brain, your thoughts, your consciousness work, and you work with your brain and with your values, and you create sustainable processes and daily habits, really there's no need for a goal or a finish line. So when I said earlier that pretty much everything I sought out to achieve and I acquired it, a lot of times that if I did create a goal or a milestone or something to shoot for, it was kind of loose. It was not usually I'm going to lose 30 pounds or I'm going to have a business that makes X number of dollars a year. It was never really a goal that was really hard and solid. It was, I would shoot for something because you got to have something to point to and aim to, because otherwise you're out in the ocean and not pointing towards anything. But it's really about being okay to pivot, because a lot of times when I have work with clients and creating goals, it's really about doing it stupid small to begin with. The first 30 days, stupid small, might be just 5 minutes. And they usually are kind of like, that sounds stupid and it sounds arbitrary, but it's not. It really is about understanding how your brain, thought, consciousness work, what habit formation is, and really being able to figure out what are the barriers and challenges to doing it for 5 minutes a day. Because there's a lot of things that we can sit and have a coaching conversation and I can ask you point blank, what are the challenges? What are the hurdles, or what resistance do you think you'll have? You might be able to name one or two, but the reality is until you actually start doing it, physically doing it and incorporating it in your world, you might go, yeah, that just doesn't work out in the morning. I have all these other obligations and all these other things. And so we got to be able to pivot and adapt and change and move that 5 minutes to a different part of the day. Pivot, find out, keep trying for the first 30 days to figure out where it fits. How can we, whatever it is that you're wanting more of in your life, that feeling, that sense of feeling. And maybe even doing it 5 minutes a day, you might find like, oh, this really doesn't feel like an alignment with my values. After I got thinking about it, it's just really, I really do enjoy having that lasagna, a full serving, a full whatever. And I don't want to give up my red wine with my evening meal with my family or sisters or whatever, So a lot of times I think that people feel shame or guilt when they create these rigid goals and these, 75 hard challenges. And then they, come to me and they're like, oh, I feel such guilt and shame. I can't do it. I'm a bad person and I'm this. And no, it just wasn't in alignment with you. It doesn't fit your values, your lifestyle, and maybe it's just too much at once, right? So again, I like that stupid small 5 minutes a day or 2 minutes, whatever we create together, to try and test and really be rigid with saying, I'm just going to try this in a small way for 30 days and see what fits, what feels good, what it's like, try it on, experiment. And then we'll come back together and say, figure out what worked, what didn't work, and keep adapting and moving it until we can make it bigger, and expand on it. But yeah, I think that, back to the original question, I think that what shapes us is so, so very important, but part of what shapes us is our values, our morals, our principles, the things that we believe in deeply. If what you're wanting to do or change in your life or have or acquire are against that grain, it's not sustainable. I used to believe too that on the food aspect is I really didn't eat very well all day long, but then I had this luxurious, glamorous meal every night, which if you really probably looked at it from an outsider's perspective, you probably thought, oh, you basically fasted all day and then you binge eat at night. And I didn't think that at the time. I thought, I'm having a wonderful meal, this luxurious meal every night with my family, and so that was something that took me probably a good year and a half to adapt that meal into a protein and a veggie, and have my family embrace that too. So, I kept making those fancy meals. I always had a protein and a veggie, but then it had all the other stuff. And then I slowly noticed that my kids would go, well, why aren't you eating these other things? And I'm like, well, because I don't like how it feels in my body. And, I just gave them, real truthful answers. And so they slowly stopped eating it. And so I noticed I'm throwing it away. So I stopped making it, and they made their own choices too. And yeah, so it's just fascinating to kind of see how we evolutionize, right? We adapt, we move, but it's not instantaneous. We don't change our habits in plural, right? We don't change a whole bunch of habits overnight. It's really about understanding how our brain works and how human beings work and how really it takes just doing small things at a time.
I love that, Katherine. I wrote down so many ideas when you were talking, and I love the stupid small concept. I think it's so flippin' key. And, and I also I love how language works and how you're talking about how like we don't change overnight. It's like we do and we don't. It's like, you don't change overnight in from one day to the next. But if you do stupid small and you do different things like from one day to the next, that is how we change. You know what I mean? And not to push back, because I know we're not arguing, we're saying the same thing. Yeah. But like that is such a key concept for people to embrace. And using phrases like, I'm learning to naturally create good feelings, I'm learning to adapt the right habits for myself and my family. And I love how you're a leader in your family to, leading your family to the right healthy outcomes for them. I think that's just I think oftentimes we associate leadership with the Boy Scout leader or the executive or the mayor. But like, we all have these like small yet so powerful leadership roles, like in our families. It's probably like one of the most important leadership roles in the world is our family and how we lead our family to desirable outcomes. So I just love that about you and what you do. And I was thinking about, the values, and I recently heard a guy talk about there's 3 ways or 3 questions a person can ask themselves to understand their values and or how coaches can understand other people's values. And they are their past perceived voids, they are the present perceived virtues, and the future visions that they pursue. And so if you can look into what was not happening in your past, what you're essentially doing that's good in your present, or what you're pursuing for the future, those are what your values are. And when I did that exercise, I was like, boy, it's sure true for me. And so I invite people to think about what they were missing in their past, what they're doing well right now, and what they're pursuing in their future, and see if that's in alignment with their values or what they say are their values. And I also love you talking about how to cultivate good feelings and naturally, right? Naturally and healthily, like a natural, healthy spirit from the inside out. And I made a post yesterday that got some great reactions. It was like I had a picture of an apple and a banana, and I said pre-workout. I think also often like it's like, oh, I need this special, concoction of chemicals for my pre-workout, and then I need my during workout and my post-workout. It's like, yo, that's definitely marketing to sell you guys more stuff. So like, beware the marketing. It is pervasive and powerful. Like, often, like, some of my heroes pre-workout was fasting. Like, it's like, I think people are so convinced that they need all these like different things in order to feel good or happy or healthy or strong or whatever. And really, it's not, in my opinion. Like, if you literally like work out doing something consistent that's not even that hard or that heavy, just do it consistently, stupid small over time. Eat like a pretty decent meal that doesn't make you feel bad when you eat it. Get a good night's sleep. Keep your stress fairly low. Drink water, get some sunlight. Repeat for 10 years. Like, you're good. And I know I'm oversimplifying it, but like, I actually really believe everything I just said, because it's what I do with myself. And obviously, there are certain health complications that need to be addressed in a variety of different ways. And I'm not a doctor. This is not health advice. But keep it small and keep it stupid simple. Like,
Yeah.
That's rant over.
Well, on that note, we're at 31 minutes, so I want to honor your time and everybody else's. But yeah, that's a great question. What is it that creates who you are? What is it that's, what's made you who you are today? And really, I think understanding what has formed who you are today can help you navigate moving forward. How you want to change, how you want to grow, how you want to serve other people, and what you want to learn, how you want to stretch yourself. What is it that, does give you fulfillment, purpose, and meaning? I think that a lot of people are just so sped up, and you kind of alluded to that too, about how, people think that happiness or external, even at the supplement scheme marketing level, it's just playing off of our emotions, because we are emotional beings. We think that, oh, if I have that pre-workout and that mid-workout and that post-workout, I'm going to look like that person that's advertising it, and that's not true. But anyways, yeah, there's so many things that to know and to do, but I think a lot of it for me when I work with clients is teaching them how to slow down, and really being who you are, being genuine and authentic, and really understanding what your values are and what it is that really grounds you and you lose time doing and enjoy. So, but on that note, I think we'll end, and this has been great. So we'll be back again here next week.
Thanks, Katherine. It's been great seeing you. Great hearing you.
Yeah, to many more. See ya.